episode 8 of the Story Traders podcast. This is stories about truck mishaps, part 1.
Including Dad Bale.
Featuring Dad. Okay. You want to say hi?
Hello, all.
Okay. So my truck story starts out right after we purchased our truck, which is a used truck.
Yeah.
Okay. So we purchased this truck. Shortly after that, like 2 months after that, we ended up also buying a camper.
Because you didn't spend enough money on the truck.
Because we didn't spend enough money already.
Let's spend more.
Yeah. We love camping, and the rest of the family on Bailey's side also has campers. So our plan was like, we're just going to go on a bunch of camping trips. So we purchased this camper from someone on Facebook Marketplace, and
reputable.
Yeah, and so we ended up going to like the place that does, the title transfer and everything. We take care of all of that. The individual who was selling it to us brought the camper with him. Okay. So my plan originally was, I was thinking, because I really haven't purchased any used things from individuals outside of a dealership, which is where we bought the truck. So I wasn't super familiar with how the license plates work and everything. So he had brought the camper. I had thought that he was going to have the license plate on the camper, and I was just going to have to get a new tag eventually, Well, he had no license plate on the camper, and I was just like,
that doesn't seem
okay,
right.
Well, we transferred the camper, but I don't really want to deal with pulling this camper home with no license plate. It's like a half an hour. So after we purchased it, we're unhooking his camper, or we're unhooking the camper from his truck, and I had this hitch that has 3 sides to it, so it's got 3 different size balls on it. And I had asked him, I was like, so wait, which size did you use? He's like, 2-inch, no problem. And so I put it on there, and then I was like, well, we probably shouldn't hook up the camper yet because I need to go get a license plate. I really don't want to drive this all the way home without a license plate. So he leaves, Bailey and I leave, go over to the BMV. I pick up a license plate for the camper.
You just left the camper.
Just left the camper. Well, I was driving the truck, but
you left the camper there.
Left the camper there at the title agents.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Did you leave any? Do you have a ball lock or anything?
Yeah, I did have a ball lock.
Okay.
On it. But this is out in the country. No one cared.
Yeah, no one cares until you go back and you're like, my camper's gone.
Yeah. Well, it was there. But we went to the BMV, picked up a license plate, came back, installed it, put it on, and hooked it up to the truck. And then I told Bailey, I was like, you go ahead, go home. She had the CRV, no problem. I'll take the back roads home because this is the first time I'm ever pulling this camper. I want to make sure that I'm not just straight up first time going on the highway, And so get it all good to go, pull out of there, and then I'm going through this smaller town about half an hour from our house, and I go down this hill, and suddenly something feels off, and I feel like I'm getting drugged, like I'm getting held back as I'm pulling the camper. And lo and behold, I look in my rearview mirror, and the entire camper is just swerving back and forth and back and forth. And I'm freaking out. I'm like, what is going on? And
so the good news is your senses were right.
Oh,
Something was off.
Something was definitely off. Yeah. And
actually, the whole camper was off.
The whole camper was off. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. It totally came off of the hitch. So I get to the bottom of this hill, finally stop. Okay.
The tongue of the trailer is just
the tongue
dragging.
The tongue of the camp. No, the tongue is not dragging, but the jack is dragging.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had the chains on the truck. So the truck is still pulling the camper, but I also had the emergency brake thing hooked up to the truck. So when it came off of the tongue, or when the tongue came off of the hitch, then the emergency brake started pulling on the camper, which is why I felt like I was getting pulled back with the truck. But it was
okay.
still hooked up with the chains, and that's why it was just like swerving back and forth. So I'm trying to
Jeez.
slow down without the camper ramming into the truck. Okay.
Had you not had that brake working,
Oh my gosh,
That's
it would have been
exactly-
awful.
yeah, it
it
could
would
have
have
been
been
a lot
It would have
worse,
been
right?
so bad.
you
We
can
had
always
had-
look at the bright
yeah,
side.
we would have had this truck for like 2 months, and who knows what would have. Yeah.
And think about how many people don't have those brakes working.
Oh yeah, yeah. I was very flustered at this point. So, get to the bottom, put the emergency brake on the truck, and then I'm just looking back, trying to figure. I'm just looking at this tongue of the trailer, and it's just sitting like real low. The jack is on the ground. You can see the mark on the asphalt
Oh,
that
my goodness.
that the jack was just dragging on the asphalt.
Did it have a wheel or was it just
No wheel.
Oh,
no, it was just straight up.
no.
And I'm telling
Surely
you
it
what.
was bent pretty
No,
bad.
it wasn't.
Whoa.
The very bottom was bent a little bit, and it was fine otherwise. I cannot believe
insane.
being an engineer, my mind was freaking blown
Yeah.
by how
Let's give that
strong
camper
that was.
a shout out.
I know.
Exactly.
I know, exactly.
They're building some good chassis.
Yeah, Forest River. So, and I looked back at the road, and there's skid marks the entire way down
From the
hill.
tires?
Yeah, and I'm like, you have got to be kidding! Like I've pulled a decent number of trailers, but I haven't ever had a hitch that has 3 different size balls.
Yeah.
So my assumption was that this guy that I bought this from knew which size ball hitch he should use, and he didn't. So he pulled it all the way from his house with a 2-inch ball
Oh my gosh.
and made it all the way to the title agency without any issue. So then I ask which size, and he says 2-inch, and I'm like, this guy knows what he's talking about because this is his trailer. And that is not the case. So I'm just looking at the tongue just sitting there on the jack on the ground, and I'm like, well, now I have to figure out how to get this back up on the truck. There's cars passing on both sides, or not on both sides, on my
They're going
left
in the
side.
ditch.
Yeah, but I keep looking around, and I see people coming up behind, and I'm like, it's not a very visible area. So I'm like trying to tell people, come, it's safe, and I'm so flustered. I'm like, I don't know.
Any of you guys got a jack in your car?
Pretty much. And so I'm like going back, getting my own jacks, getting chocks for the camper, trying to get this thing pulled up. And then lo and behold, a cop comes
You're like,
from the opposite direction.
snap.
And that is exactly what I was thinking. I was like, I'm going to get a ticket for
This
this.
is not gonna be
It's
a-
not even like, this is not going to be good. I'm going to get a ticket for this. And then he gets out.
You're just
and
imagining
he was
how
like,
the situation's going to go. He's going to walk up. What kind of idiot are you?
Yes.
I know how this appears,
Dude.
sir.
this looks bad, and it is bad, but so he walks up. He was like one of the most chill cops. He was like, hey, and I was like, hi. Well, I'll just tell you what happened, and I explained the whole situation, and he's like, okay, you need some help? And I was like, that would be great. Can you direct traffic? And he was like, yeah. And so he just goes back and he's like telling people when to come
Was he
by and
chuckling?
everything. No, he was just like real low key. And I was like, I might have gotten the best cop ever to drop by here. And so I'm like working and trying to get this. The lock on the camper, like on the tongue,
Yeah.
the ball lock, I couldn't get it undone.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm like just like shaking. I'm like trying to get this thing. And finally I get it undone. And I was like,
So this, just to be clear, is the lock that is supposed to keep it from coming off the ball hitch, right?
yes, exactly. But it doesn't make a
That lock
difference
only
If it
matters
doesn't fit.
if
when the ball is
hitch
super small.
large
Yeah.
enough.
So finally I get it back on the truck, and he's just kind of like watching me. He's like right there at the tongue just watching me as I'm doing this, and he's directing traffic and everything. And he looks up and sees on the back of the truck, like on the inside, I've got the temporary license plate taped on the inside of the window. And he goes, wow, pretty new truck, huh? And I was like, yeah, we bought the truck for this camper. Or we bought this truck, and then we bought this camper like 2 months later, just recently, or today. And clearly I now know which size ball hitch this needs to use. And he was like, yep. And I'm thinking, I am so glad that we went all the way to the BMV.
Yeah.
We spent an extra hour and a half to go to the BMV, pick up this license plate, and come back. Because if I did not, then I probably would have gotten a ticket.
Oh, yeah.
But after we got everything hooked up, then he's like, all right, have a good day. And he leaves, and I'm just like, I didn't get a ticket. I was so happy. And then I text Bailey, and I was like, wow, do I have a story for you?
I was going to say, so he wasn't taking notes for his podcast?
He might have been. He might have been. So that's my story.
That's a pretty wild one. I figured you were going to tell that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've told a bunch of people that, and I've gotten some very surprised expressions every single time.
My story is not nearly as involved as yours, or at least this truck story. But it was it was when I was working for. Well, maybe I'll keep the company anonymous. I was working for a landscape company while I was starting up the greenhouse business. But it was during snow season, so we were doing. I was doing like the sidewalk snow removal. I was leading one of those crews. So, I mean, I would always get called out in the middle of the night. It was like 2 a.m. on average. 1 or 2 a.m. Seems like I was always getting called. This one time, I went into work. I think this was the first season I was working for him, and loaded up all the calcium that we were using. We were using calcium instead of salt.
Oh, I know the story.
You might be thinking of a different one.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. But anyways, so we had been told how to get our trucks in four-wheel drive. They were older F-250s. You had to lock the wheel caps. And, I don't know. I'd never driven any truck like that. I thought it was just like, wait, I'm sorry. I'm screwing up the story. I had not been told that.
Oh, you had? Oh.
I had not been told that. So we were driving out in the snow, obviously. I was like, got to put this truck in four-wheel drive, obviously. Got to get all the traction I can get. And, yeah, had no idea about the locking. So I was driving around completely thinking that I was in four-wheel drive. Definitely in just rear-wheel drive. But I was getting on to 270 from 670, I think. And I don't know, maybe just slightly too... There were multiple factors going on. I was very tired.
Okay.
Definitely not a good thing to be driving around at night when you're tired.
Trying to take care
and I
of
was
snow.
having a conversation with the guy that was with me in the truck. And what do you know? I just swerve a little bit into the snow bank. Not the snow bank. It's like, when you're driving in the snow, you've got pretty much your clear path, and then you've got your snow piled up on the left side. Mm-hmm. We'll just say I just went like one tire's width into the snow. Oh boy.
That's all it takes.
That's all it takes. I learned real quick. You start losing control real quick.
Oh my gosh.
So it literally happened so quick. I realized, oh, whoops, got to correct myself. Uh-huh. Turn right. Too late.
And you're in two-wheel drive.
And it literally, before I knew it, it literally happened so quick that before I knew it, I was going backwards. I just turned around and I was going backwards on the highway.
Oh my gosh.
Obviously, it was very late, or very early, so nobody was out, fortunately. But it was I was going backwards, still at a pretty decent clip. I don't know exactly how fast, but I could tell I was at this point, I'm kind of looking in my mirrors, trying to drive backwards. I'm like, what do I do? What do I do?
You're going full Mater. You're just driving backwards using your mirrors. You're like, hey guys.
Yeah, but at that point, I could tell I was veering a little bit. I wasn't going straight. So at that point, I was like, I just want to hit something. Just let me stop. Because like I was very icy still. So I'm like pressing on the brake, but I'm not really doing anything. Eventually, finally, the back tailgate like corners into just the cement in the middle of the highway. And it goes boom. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just wrecked the company truck. This is horrible. But I look over at my guy. I was like, you good? He's kind of a little bit shaken. A little bit shaken.
Well, the good news is you were awake.
Guy. Yeah. I was like, you good? He's like, I think so. But I got out and there was like some bags that had come out of the truck, and then I like lost the back the license plate. So I was like, oh, I probably should get the license plate. So I threw that in the truck. But let's just say the maintenance guy for the company, already it could be a great day, and this dude's a grouch. Oh, not a happy man. Hearing what I did, he was not pleased.
Yeah,
not pleased.
Oh man,
but yeah,
nice.
Oh goodness!
But now I know a little bit more about that snowbank.
Yeah.
So no cops came along,
and also how the
no
truck,
cops.
and
no
also
cops?
how other trucks will get switched into 4-wheel drive.
Yeah, now I do know how to switch them into
there you
4-wheel
go.
drive.
Yeah, nice.
But yeah.
All right. So my truck story was from when I was about 15 years old, and those of you who have been 15 in the past probably remember how exciting it is to have an opportunity. You know, you're close to being able to drive and everything. I've driven plenty of tractors and stuff on the place, no question about that, but hadn't been driving, pickups or anything like that. So, my dad and I were out working, and can't remember exactly why I was asked to move the pickup, but it was in the middle of the driveway, and he asked me to move it so it would get out of the way of something. And I said,
he's like, I'm passing on the torch to you.
Exactly.
Okay? You're going to be the next farmer. You're going to drive this truck. It's easy.
He's probably sitting there thinking, he'll probably enjoy this too,
Yeah.
So I hop in the truck and turn on the key, and I'm thinking, that's pretty cool. Feels good.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, I want to do a good job with this. I want to make sure I don't hit anything. And so, I look off to my left, and there's a canoe there. And it's right next.
Don't touch the canoe.
Yeah, do not want to run into a canoe.
Heck no.
It's hard to tell what could happen if you run into a canoe with a pickup, So it was just laying on the ground. We didn't particularly put everything away like we should have, but and I thought, I want to make sure I avoid that canoe. So by golly, I was going to avoid that canoe, and I this is probably good, 4 or 5, maybe 6 foot clearance, and we were good.
Shoot, why not 7 or 8 feet?
Yeah, and I want to make sure I'm keeping an eye on it because, of course, canoes, they might roll at any time unexpectedly
They
or
could just
something.
float away.
So I just want to make sure I'm keeping my proper distance and everything. And all of a sudden, I hear this crunch on the other side of the pickup. And this was not a great picture. Those of you who have been around as long as I have remember the pickup trucks that they didn't have the slide out mirrors or anything like that for trailering or anything associated with that, but you had the tubular structures, and the mirrors were actually mounted on these tubes that basically stuck out.
They were just like extenders.
Yeah, they pretty much stuck out all the time. So your mirrors were always quite a ways out.
Yeah.
And we had, on the farm there, we had an old tractor with an old bucket on it, and the bucket wasn't the type of buckets that you have today with just the flat fronts or whatever. It had, these big old forks sticking out of it. Well, I had driven that pickup right into the side of that fork, and fortunately, not the pickup itself, but just the mirror. But that mirror was clearly a tangled mess of tubes, and it was never going to be a mirror.
Dad,
again.
you need more mirroring down at the wheel. That's what I figured.
That's right, exactly.
You need to see what the wheel's doing.
So, needless to say, I avoided the canoe, but not the mirror. But in any event, not the tractor.
The whole mirror is broken, and, and Grandpa's like, do you know what kind of misfortune you brought? We screwed up this mirror. Now we've got 7 years of bad luck.
So Dad, he was not particularly happy with me. I would say he lit into me pretty strongly, and I was already feeling bad, but I felt a whole lot worse. And I'm Sure, my head was hanging, about as low as it could hang, trying to,
About as low as the mirror.
yeah, right,
Yeah.
trying to avoid the very thing that happened, right? Embarrassing myself. And so, he's still kind of lighting into me after I'm out of the pickup, and we're walking on the driveway. And I said, well, didn't you ever do anything stupid? Silence. Complete silence. After a pause, he says, well, yeah. And he proceeds to tell me about this barn door that's probably only about, 30 yards from me. He said, yeah, we always used to have to drive in there to unload the hay. And one time we drove in there and my grandpa was there and Dad was, I don't know how old he was. He might have been somewhere around my age, but they were unloading hay. And after they got done, Grandpa asked him, hey, just back the truck out of there, will you? He said, sure. And he hopped in that truck, and by golly, he backed that truck out of there. And there was a door open on the other side.
Oh my gosh.
And that door was not exactly designed to bend that direction. So,
Just goes
As
like
most
the whole
doors are
way
not.
back.
yeah. So,
I cannot imagine. I would be so angry if my truck door was just pushed all the way back.
oh, exactly. Yeah, I think Grandpa probably lit into him as
Yeah.
well. But, to my benefit, that story was pretty helpful. I asked the right question
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
right time,
Yeah.
and life got better.
Yeah,
Way better.
and you told us this. You told this story like a long time ago. So I think that Josiah and I, growing up, and especially getting into the time when we would start to drive, had this story in the back of our heads just in case.
Yeah, just
we
in
did
case
anything
we did anything
stupid.
dumb.
Yeah, it's like, well, I think we can all understand.
That's yeah.
We just had to make sure our mistake was the size of messing up a mirror or less.
Yeah, or
it can't go above that.
Yeah.
that's gonna be an issue.
Yep, exactly. All right, that's a great story.
Yeah,
Okay, so we don't have any comments.
big drought comment.
You guys,
or comment
huge
droughts.
comment drought right now. You guys need to comment on or leave us a 5-star review on Apple
Yeah,
Podcasts,
we will settle for a
Spotify.
5-star.
Yeah, we'll read your review. So come on, give us something to work with for the end of these episodes. But this has been episode 8 of the Story Traders podcast.
Signing off.